Welcome to Find Your Strong, the podcast that's here to help you free yourself from food rules, fitness guilt, and those weird detox teas.
Oh, do not get me started, Ella.
All right, I won't. I'm Ella, nutritionist and intuitive eating counselor.
And I'm Christine, personal trainer, intuitive eating counselor, and your hype woman for joyful movement.
You are, woohoo! Together we talk to experts, share stories, and hopefully leave you feeling a bit more at home in your body.
So if you're ready, let's find your strong.
Hi, Christine.
Hi. I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah, hot and sweaty. We were just talking before we came on air that it's very hot. And I've got a little desk fan. People on YouTube can see it. But I have to turn it off because it makes my eyes go dry, and when I haven't got it on, I get sweaty. So rock and hard place kind of thing.
Well, I'm really cold now because I'm sitting on this, which is like an ice pack.
Ice.
You can't see it if you're listening on.
You've got a cool bum.
Yeah, I've got a very cold. You know when it's too cold, it's like an ice cream bum.
Ooh.
Like,
What do you get then? Instead of brain freeze, you get bum freeze.
Yeah, bum freeze. But it's still better than sweaty and horrible.
Yeah, I don't like being sweaty. I did an exercise class this morning outside, and we were in the shade, and I was literally dripping. Sorry to being too graphic and TMI and all that, but it's just not my season, the summer. I'm sorry.
Try being a frigging fitness instructor.
I don't know how you do
summer.
it. I'd be like, no, I'm taking the summer off. Meet me in the middle of September. Thank you.
I know. Boundaries. So,
Yes,
nice
exactly.
segue.
That's what we're talking about today, boundaries. And that's all on the back of the fabulous Sarah and Stephanie from Life After Diets, because I listened to one of their podcasts, and we can link to it in the show notes, because they'll probably be talking about it way more eloquently than the two of us can. But I really, really loved the topic of boundaries, because it's something that keeps coming up with clients that I'm sort of trying to figure out for myself in various ways. So how do they show up? How do we set them? And what are they? And are they fixed or are they flexible? All that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just thought we'll have a chat about it. What do you think about boundaries?
So I don't know about boundaries. I'm probably not as boundaried as I think I should be in many ways.
Okay.
What do you feel is the difference between rules and boundaries?
Oh, that's a good one. I think there's a bit of it gets a bit murky, doesn't it? But I would say a rule is something that can apply to lots of people. A rule is something that is
True.
pretty rigid.
Mm-hmm.
A boundary is very subjective, and I think very individual to the person who sets it. That's what I would say, probably, having been put on the spot there with that question, I would say that's probably the sort of initial response to it. Would you agree? I feel like the word rule in and of itself sounds very rigid. It sounds like have to follow this or else.
That's what I struggle with boundaries, because it's almost like the goalposts move a little bit. So, with clients, I try to be boundary, but then if somebody's having a hard time, then
Yeah.
I don't. I let
Yeah.
this slip and I
And
change.
do you begrudge that when that happens?
No, because I'm a people pleaser trying to not be.
Okay, so when you have give me an example, because that's really interesting. So when you have a client who's having a hard time, and your usual boundary of what would that be?
Well, it would be kind of, we could talk about it around payment. We could talk
Uh-huh.
about it around,
Okay.
I sort of ask clients to do at least 3 sessions out of 4 every month to keep their slot.
Yeah.
Do I follow through with that? No.
Yeah.
No, because people go away for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And so that is something which I could get a lot clearer on with people. If people don't
Mhm.
pay at the right time, I just end up chasing them for ages and taking
Mm.
up loads of time. And that I do get frustrated
Mm.
myself when that happens, because I'm not
Right.
setting a strong enough
Yeah.
boundary. And And I think it's different. I did counseling training. I think it's very different because it's much clearer as a counselor. You really need to set boundaries because people are coming from a place where they've struggled to build that
Mm.
trust with themselves and with others, and you
Hmm.
absolutely have to keep boundaries,
Mm.
people. But yeah, I'm much more lax
Mm.
with setting my own personal business boundaries.
Yeah, that's interesting. Would you say then, if in terms of payment, in particular, payment is one of those really tricky ones, isn't it? If someone pays you in advance for a session and then they miss it, would that then lead you to say, oh, we can reschedule because you've already paid for it?
No, no. So if they cancel on the day,
Yeah.
generally I charge them.
Yeah.
But if something, if they've had to go to hospital or something, then I don't
Mm.
feel right charging them.
I know.
So it's, do you know what I mean? Maybe
Mm.
their child's gone to A&E, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's a bit wrong to go, well, just pay my session as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you have to make a living, and that's where I struggle.
Mm.
So I'm like, I do need to make a living, and it is a contract. So if I, for example, made an osteopath appointment and I couldn't make it, I would expect to pay for that
Hmm.
anyway.
Even if your child had to go to hospital.
Yeah, because it's a business.
Mm.
You wouldn't expect a business to kind of go, oh,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Would you?
No, exactly. But it's interesting that that would be okay, but someone paying you for a session when their child had to go to hospital would be feel awkward, wouldn't it?
Mm.
It's interesting how the boundaries there are accepted if someone else sets them,
Yeah.
but you setting them feels awkward. And I'm exactly the same. I'm not just sort of picking up on what you just said in terms of you, but I'm the exact same. If someone and I've had this happen before. I suppose it depends a little bit on the relationship I have with a client. If it's someone who does it all the time, I'm like, no,
Yes.
you're paying for this. If this is every now and again, or I know someone is struggling and they call me up like an hour before the session and they say, can we postpone? I feel really sick. Then I should really charge them for the
Yeah.
session. But I have in the past said, okay, let's reschedule. But it also depends on how busy I am. I struggle with that massively.
But then we talk about burnout, and for somebody with an ADHD brain, a floating week is
Mm,
really hard on my brain. It's
right,
like, oh, can I change times? Can I fit in there instead of there? And I'm like, okay, so I'm fitting you in there. I'm fitting, and my brain, I get completely overwhelmed,
right.
and I really struggle with that. I feel very
Yeah,
stressed.
yeah,
So I think it would be great if I could just stick to, this is your slot. We
yeah,
move it if absolutely have to, and if we
yeah,
both have time, that's great. But
yeah,
yeah, I find it. Yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely something I'm working at because I want to be
Mm.
fair to people, and people's lives are not
No,
straightforward, and kids have like school
yeah,
plays and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff, you know.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing when you have a regular slot and then something else crops up. I
Mm.
can see that. I think I'm thinking along the lines of if something unforeseen happens, that means that you had something scheduled and it was absolutely fine, but something came up that takes priority that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, but that is exactly why people cancel. They don't cancel because they they can't be bothered. Something comes up,
Yeah,
cancel. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
and you do have to make a living. And if this is my
yeah,
way of making a living, I sort of work out how much my monthly income is, dependent
yeah,
on how many clients I have, what my weekly monthly income is.
yeah,
And if I can't, project that
yeah,
realistically, it's really hard.
yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So if I
Mm,
have a client that pushes back maybe 3 weeks
yeah.
and I'm waiting for the next block of 8 sessions, that's a
Mm,
huge chunk out of my
mm,
monthly income. Do you know what I mean?
mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and this is where setting boundaries is really important, isn't it? And actually not feeling bad about it and guilty about it and saying, well, we would do the same if someone else said that. Something that you said off mic earlier, and I'd love to say you to sort of share that again with setting boundaries for yourself and for other people. Can you, I love that. Can you tell me what you said?
Okay.
Do you
No
remember?
pressure. No pressure. Yeah, so I don't want to sort of badmouth my husband, but I don't think he listens, so it's fine. Um, I used to set a boundary for him. I used to say, if you shout at me, my boundary is you do not swear, you do not raise your voice at me,
Mm.
because I find it very upsetting and triggering.
Hmm.
Coming from the background that I did, I find it really, I feel
Hmm.
very anxious and tense, and it's not okay.
Hmm.
But then I was working with a group called Rules and Rebellion, Tasha and Brandon. I'll put them in the show notes. And they were talking about the fact that actually you should set boundaries for yourself rather than for other people because you cannot control other people's behavior.
Mm.
So you see it from that perspective. So rather than me going, I'm going to set a boundary that you can't be late paying me, blah 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 blah. If you're late doing it, no, I'll set my own boundary. And
Hmm.
with my husband, I'm like, if you do raise your voice and shout at me, I will not engage with you.
Hmm.
I simply will not engage with you. I will leave the room.
Hmm.
And that is my boundary for myself to protect myself,
Yeah.
rather than you're not going to do that anymore. Because
Yeah.
I can't control him.
No.
I can't control his behavior. That's not
No.
what a boundary
No.
is. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, and it's a really clear way of looking at a boundary, I think, because I think that where boundaries fall flat on their faces is exactly doing the opposite of that. When we set a boundary, tell somebody, I don't want you to do that. That's my boundary. When it really isn't your boundary, it's their boundary that we're not in charge of anybody else's boundaries, and boundaries clash. Sarah
Exactly.
Dosanjh described it as the sort of a boundaries where I end and you begin kind of thing. But it's almost like it's like a fence on each side with a little bit of no man's land in the middle, but everyone has to set their boundary. You can't set a boundary for somebody else because, as you said, you can't control somebody else. And
Mm-mm.
therefore, if you set a boundary for somebody else and they break that boundary, they you feel like, oh, I'm not very good at setting boundaries,
Exactly. Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Whereas yeah, maybe that's right because you didn't set the right boundary. You didn't set a boundary for yourself. So I love that sort of saying, if you do that, then I will. And my response to that will be X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Or
think that's
not even if you do that, but if I feel
if I feel,
triggered, if I
yes,
feel like
yes,
it's too much,
yeah,
I
yeah,
will, yeah,
yeah,
not engage, blah blah blah.
yeah.
And I think that really changed I was like, oh, of course.
Mm,
I
yeah,
haven't been setting my own. I've been setting very much thinking about how other people would
yeah,
react, behave, all of that,
yeah,
or think, or all of that. So I think
yeah.
that's but we wanted to talk about it in terms of food and movement.
Yes.
And yes, to tell me how you see, I mean, boundaries around food,
Mm.
tricky, huh?
Yeah, it can be because it could be a boundary that's restrictive and
Yeah,
you mistake a boundary for a rule in that sense that
yeah,
I shouldn't eat after 6 p.m. or I shouldn't eat whatever. And it's very easy to kind of misconstrue that as a boundary where that is just a food rule, a
yes,
diet-based food rule. Um, I would say boundaries in terms of your relationship with food have more to do with um, again, probably a lot with other people, sort of saying stuff about your body, about what you're eating, and your response to that.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So you cannot make them stop those comments.
no, exactly. Yeah. So
So,
you can't tell your Auntie Betty to not tell you, or should you really have that second piece of cake? Because Auntie Betty says what Auntie Betty wants to say. But your boundary would be to not say, "Oh, you overstepped the mark there, Auntie Betty." You would be the one who responded to that in whatever way felt safe for you to protect you. So I think a boundary in and of itself should be something that protects you and that keeps you safe. So that boundary could be if Auntie Betty says something about me eating 2 slices of cake again, I will leave the room,
Yeah. Yeah.
or I will talk to somebody else, or whatever that might look like. I don't know. That's the individual part of
And
it,
this
but
this is the thing, we cannot control other people. And this
no.
I was going to, and I think maybe this will make it clear to people. I'm using an example from my own struggle at the minute in terms of
Mm,
my kids around eating and bodies and all of that. I was going to send a group like WhatsApp to my close friends whose kids all hang out all together with my kids and say, I don't want anybody talking about my kids' bodies,
mm,
whether in if well-meaning in inverted commas, or
mm-hmm,
whether they've gone up, they've gone down, whether they've, oh, aren't you beautiful? No, just nothing around bodies.
mm-hmm,
But that is not my boundary to keep.
mm.
So how does that work, Ella? Because
Oh,
is that to me that's very important because I know that myself as a kid of their age, comments were what didn't cause my eating disorder, but definitely accelerated or exacerbated the
yeah,
situation for me.
yeah. God,
Mm.
that's a tricky one because you so desperately want to protect your children from that, right?
Yes, and bodies change. Teenage bodies go up and down
Course.
naturally, and I wouldn't want a flyaway comment
Mm,
sit with them.
mm.
No, you can't protect them, can you, from, but I don't know. So
No, but as you said, that's not a boundary that you can set.
I
You can,
know.
I mean, you could mention it and make a comment and ask for consideration, but the boundary needs to come from your children, really, right? If they are in that situation, what would their response be?
Does it need to come from them?
Yeah, because you're not in the situation. You can't set a boundary for a situation that you're not part of.
No, if I'm there.
Oh, if you're there, okay. Well, again, isn't the boundary how do you respond to it? I mean, your response
Yeah.
could be education. Your response could be, look, I heard what you just said, and this is what damage it could do. That
Yeah.
could be your boundary, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just thinking on the spot here. But
Yeah.
it's really tricky.
It is tricky. And it is when I think about that, kids are on social media now and they're going to be coming up against all kinds of difficult comments
Mm.
and it is, you can't protect them forever. I guess you can just think about how to build them up and
Yeah,
arm them with that resilience.
yeah. With that resilience, exactly. I suppose in a way that's part of a boundary, isn't it? The sort of flexing that muscle of responding in a way that feels safe and protective.
Mm.
Yeah. In terms of movement, what would you say? I mean, we sort of a lot of boundaries are probably around comments about bodies and food and amounts of food and stuff like that.
So, a boundary that I draw now is in a class. If I'm going to a class, I'm not
Mm,
doing it. If somebody tells me to keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, when I've had
hmm.
enough, I will not.
Right.
My boundary is no, no, thank you. I've
Hmm.
had enough now.
Hmm.
And I will not keep going until I feel a bit ill. No, no. If I
No.
want to challenge myself, I will challenge myself, but
Hmm.
not if I feel like I've hit my limit, there is no way that I will push it past that.
Hmm. Hmm. And again, that's a boundary you're setting for yourself. You're not telling the trainer, coach, instructor to don't say that to me. It's like you can say whatever you want to me, but I'm going to listen to what I'm able
Yeah.
to do right now.
Yeah. What about you for movement?
Um, I I'm quite good at that now. I used to probably be a lot more like, you tell me I need to do that. What's the hardest level? I'll sort of exhaust myself. But I haven't been doing that for a while. I mean, just an example from this morning, I went to an outdoor boot camp class, and there were certain things I just can't do. I can't do a push up to save my life. And I certainly can't do a burpee on a 8 kilo medicine ball and then a push up. It's just not going to happen. And, there's no, however much you want to encourage me to, I'm going to fall flat on that fucking ball. It's not going to happen. So I did my own thing. That was my boundary. I didn't tell the trainer to not tell me what to do. And she respected that boundary and she said, what you're doing is great. Keep doing that. However, whatever works for you, any variation of that is fine. So that was a really nice example of a boundary set by me. I'm not doing that. I actually feel unsafe doing that
Mm.
because I haven't got that sort of ability and her respecting that boundary. And I thought that was an interesting. And I would say most people who are um, compassionate and caring and love what they do, they want you to do and do stuff that you can do and give you a sense of achievement and sort of make you feel good, right?
Yes, and we've all done those boot camps where we have done things that our bodies really,
Mm,
should not have been doing because we hadn't had the appropriate training or range of motion or
yeah.
anything like that. But yeah, that absolutely. So you can get very easily injured, and I think there is no point in doing something you don't feel happy with. So yeah,
Yeah.
I applaud you for that boundary.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was quite pleased with myself because maybe even as recent as 2 years ago, I probably would have pushed.
Wow.
I probably would have challenged myself to something that felt quite unsafe and also too scary and challenging for me. And I'm like, well, who am I trying to prove something to? Why do I have to do it? So yeah, that I felt good.
That's great. And
Yeah.
that is one of my biggest bugbears, I think, is just, going down the seafront and seeing all these people swinging kettlebells around without any technique and,
Ooh.
you know, not in a way that looks in any way safe for their bodies. And
No.
it's because they feel they have to do what everybody else is doing in the same way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
that sounds dangerous.
I don't love it.
No, no,
No.
absolutely. So,
Um,
um, would you say in terms of boundaries, I know you said you're not very good at setting boundaries, but would you say that there are different kinds of boundaries you'd be setting for different parts of you? There's obviously we're not one big whole. We have all got different parts to our personality and to who we are. I'm just wondering if you've ever noticed that one part of you would like to set that boundary and the other one would rebel against it. Has that ever happened?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before record about the fact that we're both perimenopausal and
Mm-hmm.
really tired
Mm-hmm.
and don't really want to go out, but are trying to.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that is something that I'm trying to get better at is working out what I want, what versus what I need, or what I should do versus what I actually want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I have got more boundaries around not going out when I'm
Mm-hmm.
really tired and actually saying, actually, that doesn't work for me. I'm really tired, rather than going, oh yeah, of course, no problem. But so yeah, that's definitely one part of my life that I'm getting much better at. But then the conflict comes because I've got FOMO. Then I'm like, oh, I should have gone. Oh no, I bet they're having a great time. Oh, I should have. Yeah, and then you know what I mean. So it almost backfires because the whole time I go, oh, maybe I should have gone. That would have been good.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here, and it's yeah. So do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, and that's such a good example because that resonates so massively right now because
Yeah,
it's that part of you that does want to be the one that goes out and has fun and the one that has FOMO and the one that doesn't want life to pass her by, that sort
yeah,
of thing, right? And then there's the other part that is just so fucking exhausted and just doesn't want to do anything.
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got that as well. So what? Tell me about your boundary situation.
Yeah, I would say it's a similar kind of thing. I was thinking in terms of a wonderful client that I worked with who struggled with exactly that, with energy levels and with that feeling. guilty for saying no, I'm not coming out, and for worrying about letting people down, that sort of thing. Um, and I think that's a good example of, make it setting a boundary that is protecting your energy levels, but maybe isn't protecting the part of you that wants to have some fun, that
Mm.
wants to do it still, because there was a big part of her as well that wanted to be part of that, whatever it was that was going on, and it would have been helpful in some ways, and it would have sometimes helps to just do it and get out there.
Very, so that's exactly my problem right now. I don't know what I should be doing, should in inverted,
Mm.
because I'm too tired, so I say I'm not going, and then
Mm-hmm.
I go, I'm just going to be sitting at home the whole,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when it's sunny,
Mm-hmm.
living by the sea, everybody's going to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel I should go to the beach because it's sunny.
Yeah.
And then if I don't go, I'm feeling, oh, great, I don't have to go. But then I'm like, oh, I should have gone.
Yeah.
It's just, and I feel like I shouldn't just stay at home because sometimes that can make you feel a bit
Exacerbates it.
low, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I think too much at the best of times.
Yeah.
So sometimes,
Yeah.
as you say, it is better just to go and do it.
Yeah. Well, maybe that
When do
is.
you know? How do you know what you actually need? This is what I
Mm,
struggle with because
mm,
Tuesday night for dance, let's talked about this contemporary dance I'm really struggling to go back to.
mm,
Tuesday night, I thought, right, I'll go. And then the
mm-hmm,
whole day I went, actually, do I want to go? I really don't want to go. And then the friends in the class were going, oh, please go. And I went, okay, I'll go. And I went. I really didn't want to go, but I went. And I kind of enjoyed it.
mm,
And then I was kind of glad that I went. But I
yeah.
spent the whole day going, oh, I don't want to go. I shouldn't
Oh,
go. And that's such a waste of time. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah. It is the worrying about it. But I wonder whether there's a boundary to be had, sort of that feeds into that. Let's just give it a go. And then the boundary is, if I really don't enjoy it, I can go.
and I think we're coming back to movement. I
Mm,
have a number of clients who are feeling really burnt out. So they think, I want to move, but I don't have the energy. So I'm good. So do they rest completely?
mm.
Do they try and move? Because sometimes movement can be fantastic and
Yes.
really change your
Energizing.
perspective and
Yeah.
support your mental health. But
Yeah.
sometimes the right thing for you is to not move and is to find rest,
Yeah.
sleep, and nourishment, and just so it's very hard. I think people struggle with that. It is,
Mm.
where do you draw that line, or how do you know what you
Yeah.
actually need?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But
I'm,
it's,
I'm asking, how do you
oh,
know?
I don't know. I don't have the answer, but that's what I mean. I think maybe sometimes we just need to give ourselves permission to try it and
Yeah,
see if it makes us feel better. So try the rest, and if rest makes you feel worse and more lethargic, then maybe try the activity instead and see if that helps.
yeah,
And I think a lot of the time, for sort of physiological reasons, getting up and doing something will make you feel a little bit more energized and better. Maybe tired physically at the end of it, but there's all sorts of biochemistry happening when you move that maybe it'll help you get out of that slump.
but sometimes your body is just very
Rest.
tired.
Exactly. Yeah,
Uh,
it's difficult to judge. It's difficult to make that decision, isn't it? And it's very difficult to set a boundary, because when you set a boundary that is too rigid there, you might
yeah,
be missing out. So if you say, whenever I feel tired, I'm just gonna sit on the sofa. That
yeah,
might not be the best, that might be a rule that is too rigid and actually not serving you.
yeah.
Mm,
I think we could talk about this all day. I think for our
mm,
neurodivergent friends, myself
mm,
included, it's a really hard one because for
mm,
somebody that maybe overthinks anyway. And I'm all about intuitive movement and checking
mm,
with how you feel on any given day. And I'm definitely getting better at it so that I don't push myself the way that I
mm,
did. And I love movement, so I'm very lucky with that. And generally, I ask myself, how do I want to feel?
Yeah.
and move then according to
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
I find it very helpful to have weekly things booked in. So I do a boxing class where I have that bit of accountability, because otherwise I'd spend the whole time going, do I want to go? I don't know. Should I go there?
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas it is something I don't need to think about. I go to boxing,
Yes.
and and I think that's really helpful to me. And I don't do it too much. So if I had too many things booked in, it would feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
But I know if nothing else that week, I've done that class and I will always feel better afterwards.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think an interesting comparison is, sorry, I'm just checking. There's something going on. Hang on. Um, yeah, an interesting comparison there is that people who are on a meal plan, um, they it gives you that moment of where you don't have to think about it, where you don't have to worry about what am I going to eat.
Mm.
Where you have, and I think for neurodivergent folks in particular, it helps because thinking about what you're going to have next is so hard anyway.
Yeah,
Having a little bit of structure and a little bit of routine, whether that is a boundary or whether that is just that, a structure and a bit of routine,
yeah.
that can be really, really helpful. So I hear you when you say, oh, having booked in those sessions, that's really helpful for me because then I don't have to think about what I'm doing. You have a little bit of accountability.
And a reminder to everybody, you can go to classes and half-ass it. You do not, you show up
Yeah,
as you're feeling that day. So
yeah. Bandwidth. Do what you can.
bandwidths.
Mm.
And I think when it comes to feeling unwell or maybe you
Mm.
haven't had any sleep, I think
Yeah.
maybe think about not doing the workout and really taking care of yourself. But when you're just feeling a bit bleh,
Mm.
often it's quite nice to show up, move a little bit, see how you feel. If it
Hmm.
doesn't work, then you can leave halfway through.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I
That's
don't
a nice boundary.
know.
Stick to your bandwidth.
I know. It's just a really, I find boundaries just confusing, and I'm not
Mm.
sure if anybody listening feels the same. I
Mm.
think it is, I think lots of us do. I find
Mm.
it quite murky and quite
Yeah.
difficult to, I don't know, gain any
Yeah.
clarity around.
Yeah, but I think the two quite sort of clear things that we said about them today is setting it for you, not for somebody else. I think that makes it a lot clearer.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
I think that's really, really helpful, actually, what you said there. And then the other thing is maybe think about is this boundary protecting me or is
Yeah.
this boundary punishing me? Is this boundary too rigid and actually not helpful?
Very
Should
interesting.
we end on that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm still, my brain is just ticking over. I'm like, And
Hmm.
yeah, and we didn't even talk about consent because we had that
Oh
discussion with
gosh, yeah.
Doris about
Yes.
consent in terms of movement
Yeah.
and hands-on approach from certain teachers and all of that. But we'll leave that to another time. But Ella, thank you for today. That was very insightful.
Yeah, likewise. I just thought we'd just see where it takes us. And as I said, I would say very eloquent people, Stephanie and Sarah on the Life After Diets podcast. If you want to delve a little bit
Yeah,
deeper into boundaries, I'd highly recommend you listen to their episode. We'll link to it in the show notes.
absolutely. And we'll be back next week with another scintillating topic.
Yay!
And we've got some amazing guests coming up.
We have. Very
Keep
excited.
keep tuned. Leave us a review or like the podcast or just listen. We're really happy to have you here. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.